In the illustrious setting of the United Nations General Assembly, a voice emerged that would not be confined to the chambers of diplomacy alone. Minister Basilva Bazi, representing Burkina Faso, delivered a speech that transcended borders and ignited a spark across the African continent. This is Dalmar, and I welcome you to the Rise Africa Now channel. Join me on an exploration of Minister Basilva Bazi's powerful address, a speech that not only captivated the Assembly, but resonated deeply with millions across Africa. As we dissect his words and delve into the call to action that echoed through the UN, we'll uncover the essence of this pivotal moment. Africa is changing, and its leaders are no longer hesitant to speak their truth. Let's embark on this journey to understand the significance of this resounding voice in shaping Africa's future. Minister Basilva Bazi's recent speech at the United Nations General Assembly left an indelible mark on those in attendance. Representing Burkina Faso, Bazi delivered a speech that was unapologetically honest, bold, and thought-provoking. His words paid homage to past leaders and addressed critical global issues, leaving listeners with much to ponder. Minister Bazi opened his speech with a heartfelt tribute to remarkable leaders of the past who dedicated their lives to the pursuit of justice, freedom, and self-determination. Leaders such as Fidel Castro, Patrice Lumumba, and Nelson Mandela, among others, were remembered for their unwavering commitment to their people's aspirations, often at great personal cost. One of the central themes of Basilva Bazi's speech was the root causes of global inequality. He boldly stated that the true wounds afflicting our world are not isolated incidents, but are deeply entrenched in diplomatic hypocrisy. The lust for power, the relentless pursuit of profit, and the spirit of domination. These factors, he argued, have perpetuated the exploitation of one human being by another. Minister Bazi didn't mince words when addressing the challenges in international relations. He highlighted the dissonance between political rhetoric and action, emphasizing that many promises and commitments are made annually, but the gap between words and deeds remains stark. He referred to statements made by world leaders during the same General Assembly session, underscoring the urgent need for political will to address global issues. Bazi turned his attention to specific crises, such as the situation in Libya and the Sahel region. He pointed out that international intervention in Libya, authorized by UN resolution, had resulted in a catastrophic situation, ultimately leading to the demise of Libya's leader, Muammar Gaddafi. He called for an acknowledgement of the international community's complicity in this crisis. A powerful moment in Minister Bazi's speech was his call for African unity. He urged the people of various African nations, including Senegal, Benin, Niger, Ghana, Chad, and Ivory Coast, to stand together in solidarity. Bazi condemned the manipulation of African nations by external forces and called on regional organizations like ECOWAS and the African Union to work in the interest of their people rather than a select few leaders. Minister Bazi concluded his speech by emphasizing the importance of true independence and economic sovereignty. He called for a governance system that upholds human dignity and isn't exploited for power and profit. Bazi's impassioned plea resonated with many, reminding the world of the ongoing struggles faced by nations striving for genuine independence. Minister Basilva Bazi's speech at the United Nations General Assembly was a call to action, a reminder of past sacrifices, and a plea for a more just and equitable world. His words challenged the status quo, demanding that the international community confront the root causes of global inequality. As we reflect on his powerful address, we are left with a profound sense of responsibility to work towards a world where the ideals of justice, equality, and dignity are realized for all. As we reflect on Minister Basilva Bazi's impassioned speech and the remarkable transformation underway in Burkina Faso, it becomes evident that Africa is at the precipice of a new era. Burkina Faso, led by the youngest president in Africa, Ibrahim Traore, has emerged as a symbol of change, resilience, and a fervent desire for true sovereignty. In recent months, Africa has been in the spotlight not just for its vibrant cultures and diverse landscapes, but also for its courageous leaders who refuse to be silenced. While coups have cast shadows in some regions, they've also illuminated the unwavering spirit of African leaders who are unafraid to speak out, championing the values of justice, equality, and self-determination. Gone are the days when Africa's voice was muffled and its aspirations stifled. Today, African leaders are fearlessly speaking their truth, embodying the collective dreams and aspirations of their people. As we witness this resurgent wave of a liberated Africa sweeping across the continent, our hope is that it endures for years to come. We aspire to witness the emergence of a greater Africa, a continent that stands tall, united, and free, echoing the vision Minister Basilva Bazi passionately articulated at the United Nations. I invite you to subscribe to Rise Africa Now channel so you can stay updated on this transformative world and the voices that are sculpting Africa's destiny in the 21st century. Join us in this exciting journey of growth. Subscribe today and be part of the change.
The catastrophic flooding. Thousands of people lost their lives. To assuage our consciences, every nation rushed to provide their condolences and solidarity. This was, of course, to give the impression that we're living in a society and that we defend these values. Intellectual honesty requires, and the history of our conscience tells us, that we ought to sincerely apologize to the people, the Libyan people, for collectively and individually being complicit, whether through passiveness or active complicity, for supporting those butchers who caused the first man-made disaster in Libya. It was this disaster that brought Libya to its knees by looting it and by killing its guide before the flooding plunged it into further sorrow. And unfortunately, this human disaster was led by the UN under Resolution 1970, as well as the guilty silence and the complicity of ECOWAS and the African Union. This macabre intervention, with Nicolas Sarkozy's France spearheading the effort, killed the Libyan guide Colonel Muammar Gaddafi on October 20th, 2011. If our condolences to the Libyan people had the slightest bit of common sense and were not hypocritical, then this murderous diplomacy would never have taken place. And now Niger is en route to becoming a second Libya. Next, international relations are tainted by great diplomacy with no conscience or morals, dignity or integrity, justice nor peace. And this is proven because there is a clear hunger for devouring prey. Today, we unfortunately must see that, contrary to the good faith statements made at this UN podium, which call for respect for the UN Charter and international law, leaders representing the people of Niger, this brotherly people, were essentially forbidden from accessing the UN headquarters. Burkina Faso strongly condemns this underhanded maneuver, which seems to belong to the practices of the past. And this can only be explained by a loss of essential values needed for any harmonious life in society. The UN should never be used as an instrument in the hands of any country. Pan-Africanist leaders who fought for African unity, our grandparents who fell in dignity, shot by the colonialists, these great sons of Africa who sacrificed themselves for the honor of their continent, who fought fiercely against the slave trade and neocolonialism. All of them have had their eternal rest disturbed when they heard that a handful of exiles, African exiles, are holding Niger hostage. Yes, dear African continent, just a handful of your children have decided to humiliate you through the shameless lies of a state, starting with Niger. And therefore, I issue a sincere and solemn appeal to the people of Senegal, Benin, Niger, Ghana, Chad, Cote d'Ivoire, Guinea-Bissau, and all the people of Africa to stand up in fraternity and solidarity in Africa in order to prevent the imperialists from setting fire to Niger as they did in Libya. President, Secretary General, distinguished participants, at this podium in the UN and before the entire world, I insist that ECOWAS, the African Union, and the UN must become true organizations of peoples instead of structures used by a minority of heads of state. They cannot be used and instrumentalized to destabilize brotherly countries by killing their leaders. This is the only way the UN Charter and international law could have any meaning. And lastly, speaking of the UN Charter and international law, the conflict between Russia and